Distance learners, happy Monday. I hope you guys are doing well today. So what I would like to talk to you about for this assignment for today and then also for tomorrow is something called dialogue. Dialogue is when characters are speaking to each other in a story. And there are a few different characteristics about dialogue that you guys need to be aware of. So when you go to write your own stories within the next couple of weeks, you will be able to include dialogue because dialogue is important to storytelling and narrative writing. So don't worry about that too much yet. I do want to talk about dialogue today first. So let's look at this little short story here. So we have this short story and it's written almost exclusively in dialogue. And I want to draw your attention to a few of the things that are in this story and then go over a couple of examples with you for what dialogue should look like and then show you how you're going to complete your assignment for today. So let's take a peek at this little short story. I'll read it aloud and draw your attention to some of the important parts. "I don't want to go into that scary house," muttered Caitlin. "Please don't make me go in there by myself," replied James. "It's way too dark and scary. My parents want me to go home. Maybe tomorrow. I have to think about it," said Caitlin. She walked away, knowing that she wouldn't go in the house tomorrow either. She was never going in that house. "I'll call you first thing tomorrow," James yelled from his window as Caitlin ran down the block. In his heart, he knew she wasn't going to answer the phone. Just then, James heard his mother come home. "James," she called up the stairs, "time for karate." With that, James grabbed his bag. Oh, it's cutting it off from my little recording thing. But it's okay. We can talk about what we saw so far. So there are a couple main things I want you guys to notice here. One of the main things I think is kind of interesting about dialogue is it has a grammar piece or a piece called a punctuation mark. So a punctuation mark are these two little lines that precede and end each quote or each part that a person is speaking out loud. So we know that a character is speaking out loud when quotation marks are used. The other thing that I want you to notice is that the punctuation for each of these lines here, for each part, goes before the end of the speaking part and before the end of the quotation marks itself. After the person finishes speaking, you can see that there is a verb or something we call a speaker tag that precedes the person who is actually doing the speaking. So in this case, at the first line, it's muttered. So you can say characters said, shouted, asked, questioned, inquired, wondered. You can ask or use a lot of different words as a speaker tag here. But in this one, you see muttered, replied, said, yelled. You see a lot of different options. So this is something to keep in mind when you're writing dialogue yourself. You want to vary up your speaker tags. All right, so I hope you were able to understand a few of the parts that are important to dialogue within this. I want to go over a few brief examples with you about things that you need to make sure you do when you're writing dialogue. One of the things is you need to make sure your quotations are before the sentence starts. So whenever a person is saying something out loud, you need to make sure you put your quotation marks at the beginning. The second thing is you need to make sure your punctuation is always inside the quotes. Like you can see here in this example, the period or the end of this quote from this person is inside the quotation marks. The next thing I want you to be aware of is that whenever you have a quote that is embedded or within a part of a full sentence here, you need to make sure, like we mentioned the last time, that your question marks, all your punctuation that goes along with your actual quote itself is inside the quote. In this case, they're asking a question, so you need to have a question mark there to indicate that this is a question and not something you are asking about that you're quoting. So that's why your question mark is within your quotes. As you can see here, it's a part of a full sentence with a period here at the end. So we have this part that's lowercase, and it says she wondered aloud, and you still keep this first word of the tag lowercase because it's still a part of the sentence. So even though this first sentence right here, are you sure we have to leave that early? Or could stand alone if it weren't being spoken out loud, it is a part of a full sentence. So you need to make sure that your words or tags or characters or whoever is speaking, the part that comes after that's spoken out loud is lowercase. All right, let's look at another one. This one's very similar to the one we just looked at here. Instead of a question mark, we have a comma. So we always put a comma if we're not putting a question mark or an exclamation point. And when we always put the comma whenever it's followed up by a part where it says that he said this, or she did this, or she wondered that. Like we have in the last ones, our quotes become before the sentence starts, and we have a lowercase for the part after the quotes because it's all part of a single sentence. All right, let's look at this one here. This one's a little different because it's preceded by a speaker tag in this case. And so it says, he finally said, comma, and then it starts with a quote, and this part of the quote is a separate sentence like we talked about in the first one. So we have to start it with a new capital letter. So in this case right here, we capitalize the letter F. Capitalize the first word in a sentence as if it's the first thing they spoke, even though it's a part of this full sentence here. So it's kind of confusing, but whenever what is being spoken out loud is coming at the end of the sentence, you put a capital letter there. And you always put your comma before the quotes if it's not a part of what's said. So in this case, the comma isn't here. It is at the end of said. We always do that when we're embedding or introducing something that someone is saying out loud. All right, so a couple of reasons why authors use dialogue. It's important for you guys to know that dialogue is something that breaks up the monotony of a story. So a lot of the times if you have chunks and chunks of paragraphs all in a row, it can be very, very boring if you don't have anything breaking that up or making something different. So dialogue is a way that you can make your story more interesting. They also use dialogue, authors, they being the they there, use dialogue to show us about their characters. If characters are speaking a lot in the story, we can know a couple of things about them. We can know that they're important to the story. We also can make guesses about their personality. So if a character is very talkative in this story and they are spending a lot of time being outgoing and friendly, we can learn things about their personality through what they're saying to each person in the to whomever they are speaking to. So let's look at your assignment for today. For your assignment, what you guys are going to be doing is you're going to be correcting these 4 sentences. So these sentences have problems. So your first part of your assignment is to fix them. So look through these here and think about the things and examples I showed you today in this video. And you might have to watch it back and look at the slides that I had up on the screen and look and see what is wrong. So I want you to rewrite this sentence, and then I want you to correct what is wrong with it. So you can copy and paste this and then into your text box or a different document and then upload it and then correct what's wrong with it. The second part of your assignment is you're going to create your own sentences using the models below and the instructions from this video. So like I mentioned, there are a couple different ways that we start our quotes and start dialogue sentences. So what you're going to do is you're going to create your own dialogue. So in model number 1 right here, it starts with the subject. So in this case, the subject or the noun, the person speaking, is Billy. So you're going to write a sentence that's modeled or similar to this one. Use your own example, create your own actual phrase, but you need to copy the way that this sentence is laid out. So it starts with our subject, has our verb/speaker tag, and then is what is said. For the second one, you're going to do it where it starts with what is said. So in this case, this is what someone is saying out loud, and they have their verb or their speaker/speakers tag, those are the same thing, and then whoever the subject is. And the third model you're going to create your own sentence for is you start with a quote. See, it has a comma here, and then it has our speaker tag and our subject, and then it has another thing that person says. So these are the 3 that I want you to create your own sentences for. They can be any sentences about anything you want. So maybe talking to your siblings or what you did this past weekend, whatever it may be. All right, so if you have any questions, as always, feel free to message me on Canvas or email me. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day.